Good morning. It is an honor to introduce Nancy LeaMond, AARP's Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer, to Focus Forward. Nancy has responsibility for advancing the organization's social mission on behalf of Americans 50+ and their families. She leads government affairs and legislative campaigns for AARP, widely seen as one of the most powerful advocacy organizations in the country. She also manages public education programs, community engagement, and AARP's network of 18,000 volunteers. Nancy's team includes 700 staff members across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. She directs major AARP initiatives, including work to support America's 48 million family caregivers. She leads advocacy, education, outreach to employers, and innovative programs that are aimed at saving caregivers time and money, as well as making sure they have the information, skills, and tools they need to care for their loved ones with confidence. Particular attention is paid to connecting family caregivers with resources and services in their own communities. Nancy has been named by The Hill as a top lobbyist every year since 2011, and as one of Washington, D.C.'s most influential people shaping policy in the healthcare category by Washingtonian Magazine for 4 years in a row. In 2020, she received the first ever Lifetime Achievement Award from the Women in Government Relations, and the National Institute for Lobbying and Ethics also named Nancy one of its 2020 and 2022 top lobbyists. Please give a warm Focus Forward welcome to Nancy LeaMond.
Well, thank you very much for that delightful introduction. I find that if you leave Washington, the introductions get better and better, so it's a good reason to be here. I'm so pleased to be in West Virginia. For many years when I was growing up, our summer vacation for my family was in Beckley, West Virginia. We came down and visited my uncle who was working in the IRS facility there. So it brings back a lot of memories, though I know my geography well enough to know I'm not in Beckley. Appreciate very much the chance to be with you. I was so impressed last night to learn how powerful these conferences have become in securing action and leadership on key issues. I understand the first conference 7 years ago focused on AI, and I can tell you, I don't know of any organization that was focused on AI 7 years ago. So that makes this even more important, as I hope you are launching an effort which we can collaborate with on innovative thinking to improve the way we age. That's something obviously at the heart of AARP's mission. And again, I'm so appreciative that this is a topic of interest to you today. Particularly after this wonderful informal discussion, I wanted you to know that when I got the invitation, I said, oh great, I think I'll just give some impromptu remarks. And 3 people volunteered to write a speech for me, suggesting that perhaps something more formal would be better for today. So here we have it. I borrowed the title of my remarks from the eminently quotable Yogi Berra. I'm a big baseball fan. But he captured this perfectly in saying the future ain't what it used to be. There are a lot of challenges ahead as our population ages, and we in the aging community and all of us need to understand that as we look ahead, we shouldn't just assume that everything's going to be like it was before or like it is today. And that's why I appreciate so much the chance to be with you. The sentiment of that quote also captures an important concept to keep in mind as we talk about aging, and that is the world around us is changing at a pace unlike anything we've ever experienced. And the way people live as they age is changing as well. So we want to take a step back and challenge all of these assumptions. What does aging in America, in West Virginia, really mean? And are we thinking about things in the right way and solving the right problems? And importantly, are we bringing together the right organizations, not just the predictable ones, and the right people? And with this in mind, I wanted to talk as quickly as I can about 3 trends and 3 big challenges that are coming down the pike. Trend number 1, America is aging. Now, this may sound obvious, but the scale of the demographic shift and its implications shouldn't be underestimated. In 2020, 1 in 6 Americans were aged 65 or older. By 2030, just 5 years from now, it's going to be 1 in 5. And here in West Virginia, you've already arrived. According to the 2024 census estimates, 65-plus West Virginians accounted for 21.5% of the state's population. That's up from 16% in 2010, and you're projected to be at 23% in a little less than a decade from now. Nationally, there are 2 distinct forces driving this change. First, the aging up of the giant boomer generation. Baby boomers started turning 65 in 2011, and our entire cohort will be 65 plus by 2030. And second, more Americans are living longer than ever before. The number of Americans 85 and up is projected to triple by 2060, from 6.7 million today to more than 19 million. And even the larger millennial generation, I don't know about you, but I'm preoccupied with millennials since I have 2 sons who are millennials, but even that incredibly large generation is not far behind. Oh, and apologies to all of you who are Gen Xers. I, like everybody else, will overlook you in these remarks. So the trend of this aging population is going to continue. Trend number 2, they're staying put. Despite what you read, most older Americans aren't planning on pulling up stakes and moving to Florida or Arizona. AARP's latest research found that 73% of folks aged 50 or older want to stay in their current community as long as possible, and 75% want to stay in their current homes. The 65 and older are even more strongly focused on that. 78% want to stay in their communities, and a remarkable 80% want to stay in their homes. And I should point out, in many, many cases, staying in your home at that age is not going to be feasible. But the bottom line is this: the implications of an aging population are going to be felt everywhere, every state, and virtually every community in our country. Trend number 3, we're just not the same as past generations. Today's seniors, we, are much different than our parents and our grandparents, and tomorrow's older adults will be much different than today's. There are 2 big differences relevant to today's conversation. First, older Americans are increasingly tech savvy, maybe not as much as digital natives as our kids, but remember, it was the boomers who invented the internet. And so technology, as it continues to evolve, older West Virginians, particularly folks who are in their 50s and 60s today, will have a higher comfort level with those new gizmos and gadgets. Second, there's a new word for retirement. And I always smile when I say this because about 10 years ago, AARP spent a huge amount of money and effort trying to find a new word for retirement. Nobody liked that word. Well, it turned out we couldn't find a new word. And I just kind of piped up based on what I was experiencing. I said, there is a new word for retirement. It's called work. The 65 and up crowd has been the fastest growing age group in terms of labor force participation. Around 1 in 5 Americans 65 and older were employed in 2023, just about double the share that were working as recently as the late 1980s and early 90s. 62% are working full-time, 23% are self-employed. And here in West Virginia, folks age 50 and older, you know this well, are helping to drive your economy. Our research projects that by 2030, the economic activity of the 50-plus will support around 430,000 jobs in the state, and the 50-plus workers will number close to 280,000. And also, as you know, a significant percentage of the state's small businesses are owned by older West Virginians. This is a trend across the country. It's important to note that folks keep working, sometimes because they want to. It's how they stay energized and engaged, and some keep working because they need the income to pay the bills. This, of course, brings us to the challenges that are coming down the pike. And challenge number one is perhaps the most obvious: financial and health security. And I find that it's best described by a cartoon. Again, we get tons of research on emerging trends, but I find that cartoons are often the kind of canary in the mine in suggesting what's going to be important and what we need to focus on. So a few years ago, there was a cartoon, husband and wife talking to one another. One turns to the other and says, "You know, I think we'll just squeak by if we take a late retirement and an early death." So simply put, living longer comes with a cost. And for a lot of Americans, those numbers simply don't add up. For about half of Americans, the numbers are okay, but for the rest, it's very, very challenging. Retirement savings need to stretch farther than ever at a time when more Americans are carrying debt into their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Fewer have defined benefit pensions. Millions don't have access to a 401k or other employer-assisted plan. And among those who do, most aren't able to save what they're really going to need. That's why AARP West Virginia advocated last year to eliminate the state income tax on Social Security. This puts money back in the pockets people, and it makes a real difference in the lives of older West Virginians who live month to month on a fixed income. Now, I've noted that more people are putting off retirement, but just work longer can be a precarious prescription for success. Age discrimination is a pervasive obstacle to overcome. And I say that as an organization that has worked for many years on countless initiatives. We've made some progress, but not nearly enough, and we're going to have to work even harder at enabling people to work later in life. And of course, the risk of disability increases with age, pushing some folks out of the workforce anyway. Already, millions of older Americans are living with chronic health conditions. 95% of older folks, have at least one, and close to 80%, imagine 80% of people over 65 are dealing with 2 or more chronic conditions. I probably don't even have to tell you that. I saw the word cloud right at the beginning of the conference, and health was big and almost like a neon sign, and that is why. In addition, 1/3 have some kind of cognitive impairment or dementia, and millions of all ages, and it's growing by the day, are dealing with the debilitating effects of neurological conditions like Parkinson's, ALS, and MS. This puts huge pressure on the healthcare system. I know that expanding the healthcare workforce and making sure everyone has access to the care they need is a big priority in West Virginia. I know it's a topic on your agenda for today, and I'm proud to say that AARP stands with you on this important issue. We recently worked successfully to advocate for legislation. I think it's now awaiting the governor's signature. Maybe, is that up to date? Good. That will allow certified registered nurse anesthetists to practice to the full extent of their education and training while still meeting stringent qualifications. And our state team also facilitated the West Virginia Direct Care Task Force that developed actionable recommendations to increase recruitment and retention of direct healthcare workers. Challenge number 2, and one very close to my heart, are the demands on family caregivers. The demands on and for family caregivers is also increasing. The little secret of our long-term care system is that it relies almost exclusively on unpaid efforts of 48 million family caregivers across the country, 10 times the number of paid long-term workers. We, of course, need them as well. But nationally, there are 4.7 million paid long-term care workers. For each of them, there are 10 wives, husbands, adult children and grandchildren, neighbors and friends, doing everything from preparing meals and driving to doctor's appointments to handling complex medical and nursing tasks. Here in West Virginia, the numbers are slightly better than 10 to 1, with a little more than 28,000 direct care workers and approximately 250,000 family caregivers. Just by a show of hands, how many of you have been, are, or expect to be a family caregiver? Yeah. I don't want to say you're a typical group, but with all those hands that went up, I think you bear out our research, which shows 61% of family caregivers work full or part-time, 3 in 5 are women, 3 in 10 are millennials or Gen Z, close to 30% are caring for both a parent and a child, and 80% report spending out of their own pockets on care expenses that average around $7,000 a year. They need and deserve more support. And make no mistake, this is a huge issue as we confront how we're going to manage long-term care over the next 20 and 30 years. And we know how hard this is for families. Again, I want to go back to a cartoon that ran a few years ago. It was particularly poignant for me and my sons. Their parents, obviously, with all of their belongings on the front step. The adult child comes to the door, and the parents say, "We changed our mind. We decided we are going to be a burden to you." And that, though funny in its own way, is really a story in many, many parts of our country. Now, we've made a good amount of progress in the last few years advancing policies to support caregivers, especially at the state level. And West Virginia was one of the first states to pass the CARE Act, which ensures that family caregivers are included when a loved one is discharged from the hospital. But there's more to do, especially at the federal level. A big priority for us is passing the Federal Credit for Caring Act that would put money back in the pockets through a federal tax credit for eligible family caregivers. And I'm pleased to say that your senator, Senator Capito, is one of the lead co-sponsors of this legislation, which was introduced last month in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. There she is. Senator Capito has been a stalwart champion for West Virginia's 250,000 family caregivers and a leader on this issue at the national stage. Now, challenge number 3, strengthening communities for people of all ages. That's an area, too, where the senator has been involved in leading the charge on an important element of addressing the last challenge I want to mention today, creating communities that are great places to live for people of all ages. We know that most older Americans want to stay in their homes and communities as they age, and as I mentioned, this is often easier said than done. The good news is that the things that help older Americans also support the population writ large. As it turns out, whatever your age, we all want the same things: safe, affordable housing and transportation, good health for ourselves and our loved ones, opportunities to learn, earn a living, and enjoy our lives, and a connection with our neighbors and broader community. Technology has the potential to be a real game changer, enabling things like telehealth visits to make it easier to access health care, expanded education and job opportunities for people of all ages, and the ability to stay up to date on what's happening and in touch with loved ones near and far. But achieving the promise of a wired future requires the expansion of high-speed internet across all communities, something that AARP is focused on nationwide, especially in rural areas. And for nearly a decade, you know your senator, Senator Capito, has been pushing for this by improving the coverage maps to pinpoint where help is needed, increasing funding to expand access, and making sure that West Virginians' voices are heard to build a plan that's unique to the needs of the state. And that's what we need to do in West Virginia. It's what we need to do in every state across the country. And so you're up and running, and we need to be up and running everywhere. Through gatherings like this, I have no doubt that you'll continue to make progress. We all have a role, you know this, I know this, in tackling the tough issues and getting things done. And events like this one highlight the importance of collaboration. Again, I am impressed that you use these conferences, and I've been to a lot of conferences, to catalyze concrete actions for many, many years. The aging community has been too myopic, not reaching out, not understanding that everybody has a stake in what we need to do. And I applaud your efforts, and I hope this is the beginning, or maybe you're in the middle, but the beginning of something even more intentional and even more focused. You are uniquely able to reach out to groups that heretofore may not have been engaged. Employers can make it easier for working family caregivers as they juggle their responsibilities, and they can support a multi-generational workforce. Entrepreneurs can jump into the growing market for easy-to-use and affordable products and services geared to older adults. Health providers hold the key, absolutely hold the key, to delivering quality and affordable care. Educators, community leaders, and organizations can ensure ongoing conversations about the changes that would help residents of all ages thrive. So I thank you for all you are doing and continue to do. Thank you mostly, by virtue of this conference, for recognizing the aging of America, the aging of your state, as one of the most important places to focus the attention of you, leaders, important policymakers, important and influential people throughout your state. And I can promise you that as you take this journey, as you identify initiatives, as we've worked with your former senator, your current senator, and others, AARP West Virginia stands ready to be with you as we deal with perhaps one of the biggest issues that confronts us over the next 20 and 30 years, the dramatic increase in older Americans in this country. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.